Oh, how about Edward Van Halen? Okay, this is one of those records. I go over to a friend's house when I guess I'm 16 or something, and he goes, "You got to hear this. You heard of this Van Halen?" I'm like, "What? Van what? What is that? Van what? Van Halen? What is that?" And he puts it on, right? And then I think it opens with Eruption, right? And then it goes into You Really Got Me. And it's a funny thing. There were kids just 10 years older than us, right? It was like a generation gap within the span of 10 years. And You Really Got Me, all of a sudden, instantly, I'm like, this is way better than the Kinks version. And then I go back and I'm talking to my sister, who's 10 years older than me, talking to her about Van Halen. And she's like, they're just not very good. You know, and the Kinks version of You Really Got Me is better. I'm thinking, that's really mysterious. So it's kind of funny how generationally it can a change in music can occur within a short time like that. I thought everything Van Halen did on that first record was amazing. I've seen a comment on YouTube like, a guy like that is only going to come along every 5,000 years is when you're going to get another Eddie Van Halen. You know, he's that different. He's that groundbreaking. He's that this and that. He's everything, you know. And I liked that Van Halen. I liked that first record especially. And there was a guy who broke it down. He made an instructional video in the 90s breaking down Van Halen's style. And I'd never thought of it, but he kind of separated that first record out, and I think he's got a point. As you get into the second and third, you keep going on through the catalog, it changes. For instance, like he never used the phaser after that first record. He started using choruses more and that sort of thing. Anyway, he was a game changer at that day and age. And you know, I've seen people troll or pan or like downvote some of these covers they were doing at Whiskey A Go Go, but I actually really like these covers, like Man on the Silver Mountain from Rainbow and The Rover from Led Zeppelin. I think that these covers are incredible. And, well, I just think that Van Halen was a great guitar player, and it's almost like a package deal, you know, with his brother. And David Lee Roth, you know, he had that scream that, it's like, it had a lot of wind in it. I'm not doing it justice, right? I'm actually doing a more of a 50s, like David Lee Roth in his 50s kind of emulation there. But you know that scream, it had a lot of wind in it, and it was high. But then everything else he did was like baritone. He brought something to the table as far as like just his tone of singing in a hard rock. Because most hard rock singers, if I'm not mistaken, they're screamers, you know, they're higher. But anyway, this is about Van Halen, and I tend to agree with that. You know, maybe he would come along every 5,000 years. Now, here's one thing about a guy like that, is his whole life was guitars. You know, it was building his own guitar. It was playing guitar all the time. So if you want somebody to emulate as far as practice habits, it would be Edward Van Halen. Practicing all the time. And then maybe even like for the whole thing, like except maybe you don't need the cocaine and the booze. It seems to me that the cocaine and the booze leveled out. Like you got your upper and then your sort of downer, respectively, and then you take them together and they kind of level you out. And I've heard him say that he was terrified of going on stage, so that was what got him through it. And he's not the first rock star to say that. It was tough being up there in front of all those people, and you know, it worked for 10 or 15 years, and then he had to change his ways. Now, the only thing I would say about Van Halen is that today, what I'd really like to hear from Van Halen is for him to get, I think it's 18 frets per octave. It's from where his mom came from, Indonesia. Like Bali, I guess in particular, would be for him to explore some of the music that his mother might have listened to growing up. You know, his dad was a Dutchman who brought the mother back from Indonesia to, I guess, Amsterdam and then Los Angeles. So that would be what I'd want to hear from Eddie next, is some kind of Bali-esque thing. Now, to his credit, a lot of what he was doing was actually kind of outside the box with the things he was doing with the vibrato bar and such. It was actually, it did kind of hail back to his mother's roots, from the get-go, but kind of in an indirect fashion. Whereas I'm talking about him going and getting guitars that break down the octaves further and actually doing some kind of tiki torch type music.